This week in games, Ubisoft is getting bought out, Game Informer rises from the dead, and Crystal Dynamics faces layoffs. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 245. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
Yes, I'm here as a co-host, here to talk about video games. Tavin, what's talked about today?
A lot of stuff, Connor, and we're going to get to all of that really quickly. But first, I do want to give out a quick disclaimer. Normally, we have a nice little set that we put up and use with a bunch of different camera angles and stuff. It's a lot of fun. We don't have that this week. Both me and Connor are feeling under the weather. I've been sick all week. Connor's just started feeling a little not great. So we just said, you know what? Let's just save the energy. Let's keep it simple and clean. Wink. We'll get to that, and that's a little Easter egg for some other stuff here in a second. Let's just do it all over Discord. Let's keep it real simple, not have to put up a big set and break it all down and so forth. So that's why you have the current setup you do this week. But, of course, this is the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you with the nerdy news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. Connor, how was your week this week, brother?
My week was good. I had a game played here and a game played there. I've gone far and wide, and now I'm here to tell you all about it.
Connor, perhaps one of those games might have been Kingdom Hearts.
It was not.
Because of course, next week, the return of our Two Penny Game Club, our monthly video game book club, comes back where we review a game of yore and rank it amongst the other games in the series. This month's game is Kingdom Hearts 1. So make sure you're all caught up with us and have played Kingdom Hearts 1. I said it suggestively, Connor, but you and I have been done with this game for weeks.
We have been. And you'll have to wait till next week to know whether we did that because we couldn't put the game down.
I mean, we blazed through it, Connor. We didn't put it down, you know? We picked it up. And we said, "Hey, we're in it, man. We're in for this ride," and that's what we did. That, yeah. So check back next week for our review on that. And of course, a breakout video will be live on the YouTube channel. So youtube.com/@2pennygames. If you want to see that review broken out and just that'll be live later Monday night. But of course, if you want to watch us record all of our shows live, make sure you check in Monday, twitch.tv/2pennygames. We go live every Monday afternoon and record all of our shows, including this one, the Piggy Bank and the Game Club. And also, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel because this week we will be reacting to the Nintendo Switch 2 Nintendo Direct that is happening. We will not be live for that one. We'll just be recording it. So just make sure you're subscribed and you have your little alarm bell set, your notifications set for the channel so that you can get all of our deep thoughts and opinions about everything going to be shown off at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. But Connor, this is, of course, the Two Penny Gamescast, where we each give you our 2 pennies on 2 different topics. And you, of course, write all the stories that we talk about on the show, which you can go and see at twopennygamesnews.substack.com. And moving on into our first topic of the day, let's get right into the news, good buddy, and get this train started. I want to go into my first penny of the day, first topic of the day. Tencent invests in new Ubisoft subsidiary to develop pre-existing IPs. Chinese conglomerate Tencent spends $1.25 billion investing in Ubisoft subsidiary, focusing on developing games in the Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six franchises. Following news 2 weeks ago that Ubisoft was seeking investors, including Tencent, in a new entity specializing in developing Ubisoft-owned IPs, the company announced the partnership in a press release this past Thursday. The statement reads, quote, "Following the formal and competitive selection process initiated by the group earlier this year, Tencent will invest 1.16 billion euros for a minority stake in the subsidiary. This new subsidiary will focus on building game ecosystems designed to become truly evergreen and multi-platform, backed by greater investment and boosted creative capacities. It will drive further increases in quality of narrative solo experiences, expand multiplayer offerings with increased frequency of content release, introduce free-to-play touchpoints, and integrate more social features. Excuse me.
Gesundheit is the sickness coming around. It's spreading.
That will not be the first
hard.
time I'll have to pause to cough. Back to the article that Connor wrote, TwoPennyGamesNews.substacks.com. Aside from the successful launch of Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ubisoft's recent projects have underperformed, with Star Wars Outlaws reportedly selling less copies in 2024 than the 2023 title Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Gee, who could have predicted that? Furthermore, Ubisoft's 2024 online FPS shooter X Defiant has already announced servers will no longer be supported on June 3rd, while both Skull and Bones and Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown similarly performed poorly, with Prince of Persia's development team being disbanded following the game's release. Not Prince of Persia team's fault.
Nope, not at all.
Quote, as we accelerate the company's transformation, this is a foundational step in changing Ubisoft's operating model that will enable us to be both agile and ambitious, said Ubisoft co-founder and CEO Yves Guillemot. Quote, we are focused on building strong game ecosystems designed to be evergreen, growing high-performing brands, and creating new IPs powered by cutting-edge and emerging technologies, yada, 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 yada. Once again, just a bunch of PR speak that was probably written by an AI robot at this point, which is the amount of times that we've heard this speech given again and again and again, and it all means nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. Tencent investing heavily and having such a premier stock in Ubisoft, not a great thing, because Tencent is one of these companies that is just so profit-driven, has contributed to a large percentage of layoffs that have happened over in the last couple of years through their just massive buyout and purchase and buy-in into the games industry. This is not a company that's really for the culture. And Ubisoft, which has fallen so far from the grace that it held in the early 2010s, is also a company that, like, I just have zero faith in these days, to the point to where I'm personally, not because of any quote-unquote said controversy surrounding the game, but I'm personally not buying or playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. Again, not because of the game itself. From what I hear, the game is fun. But personally, just how Ubisoft has been conducting themselves business-wise and the amount of layoffs that they've had. Connor, you pointed it out. The disbandment of the Prince of Persia team was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. Also followed up by Star Wars Outlaws being just a colossal turd. You can check out my review on that game on the channel. But yeah, I've lost a lot of faith in Ubisoft. I don't really feel like supporting Ubisoft, and this just kind of feels like a heavy continuation in the patterns that we've seen up to this point, letting franchises like Prince of Persia, Splinter Cell, Rayman just kind of die on the vine. Tom Clancy kind of just being boiled down to Rainbow Six, and even in that, Rainbow Six Siege almost exclusively has been very, very disappointing. The colossal failure that is Skull and Bones, the deterioration of Assassin's Creed in terms of quality. I'm just kind of tired of all of it. Far Cry just being a copy and paste game for the last decade. I'm just tired of all of it, and yeah, this just seems to be a continuation of that. It's really disappointing, and this is to me a big sign of, like, oh, Ubisoft is going under Tencent, so it's gonna get even colder. It's gonna be even more money hungry, and yeah, we're just gonna probably see the continuation of the trend that we have been with Ubisoft games and Ubisoft Studios. Whether that studio is talented or not, lots of these studios have also been rife with controversy through lots of, like, sexual harassment complaints and just what was it? Ubisoft Singapore, I believe, which was
the ones who did Skull and Bones.
Skull and Bones was they were, like, compared to, like, a circus or something, like, or like maybe something even more heinous than that. And so yeah, I've lost all faith in anything Ubisoft these days, and it hurts me to say because there's a large percentage of Ubisoft IPs that raised me. I grew up on Prince of Persia. I spent my teenage years with Assassin's Creed. I had a heavy stint in Rainbow Six Siege and Far Cry, and so yeah, it's just really disappointing me to see a publisher of this size with so many great IPs and with so much talent just waste it all.
Whether these games will improve due to this new relationship with Tencent,
and I hope they do.
I hope they do as well, but it's not assured. It really isn't. Assassin's Creed, a lot of people have gotten burnt down by it. They tried to go back to their origins with Mirage. That didn't really do big numbers, didn't draw back a lot of people to it. In fact, it may more than anything else. Yeah, I've heard some good things about it, but it's definitely not what Assassin's Creed needed at the time. And the new direction that they're going in, at least it's working financially. Assassin's Creed Shadows has sold amazingly well so far. We'll see if that keeps up.
Second fastest
but even so,
selling Assassin's Creed game to date.
Yes. But the problem is it's still in that same vein of what we've seen and why I'm also not buying it with Odyssey and with Valhalla and even Origins, where it's fallen into its a routine again. And originally it got tiresome after a while, and it seems like that's going to be happening with this franchise relatively soon, unless Tencent's able to do some kind of interesting twist on it. But I don't think they particularly will. Far Cry, Rainbow Six Siege, I guess I'll say real quick. That's surprising to me because they're doing a rehaul. They're updating a bunch of shit. I know there was a presentation recently. I didn't watch it.
That game's gone through a bit of a revival over the last year or two.
Yeah. So, I guess they did that maybe I don't know if they did that with the plan of having it sold off and, all of these changes they've been making to it recently. It's all going to work as part of the plan in association with Tencent. I don't really quite know. Far Cry is kind of same thing with Assassin's Creed. It had its burnt out period. We hadn't had one since what was the last one that was released? 2022, 23?
6 in 23, I think.
Yeah, and that also wasn't really received all that well. It came and went. It didn't have the fanfare it used to. And so that combined with Tencent taking control of things, I see us having some layoffs relatively shortly down the line. I don't know how many people would be laid off, but clearly Tencent and the industry as a whole are not going to be the ones to change that. And so, yeah, this is just, hopefully it does something good for these IPs, but as Ubisoft has conducted itself in recent years, and with these generic words of, we're going to,
Far Cry
be agile and ambitious. 2021.
Yeah.
So
have we had one of them spin-off Far Cries in the last
No, we had a spin-off Far Cry, but that was after 5. That was the only spin-off.
We've had a couple. They usually they would do one, and then they'd do a spin-off, and then they'd do another one, and they'd do a spin-off.
They only did that
Primal.
twice.
Primal was after 4.
But in that case, they would only done those spin-offs twice, because they would have done it after 4, and then they would have done the one that takes place after 5.
No, because it was 3, and then it was Blood Dragon, and then it was 4.
That was DLC.
And then it was Primal. It's the same shit.
No, that's not. One's a whole different game.
It got its own box in a store. It was just in that time where we didn't differentiate the difference between a DLC and a thing. That was a game.
Either way, they seem to have stopped doing that kind of model of having a spin-off game.
Yeah,
for
probably.
good reason.
I'm just trying to remember if they've done it for post 6 is the thing, because that's real. 6 is the break in the pattern. It's not like that's an established pattern that they set, and then they've just not done it for 6. It looks like. I'm trying to remember what the one after 5 was called. It was the one with the like the twin sisters that you did. New Dawn? No.
Yeah. I was wanting something Dawn,
Great Path. That. Yeah. It was something weird like that. And then and I can't remember one after 6. I don't think they've done one. Because was that the same team that did the Avatar game?
Ooh, I do not know. I cannot,
because that Avatar game was just kind of like a Far Cry clone.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know if it was the same studio or not. I just don't have that information. But that's the same idea. But again, that's another game that was just received, and everybody went, all right, it's a Ubisoft game, it's a video game, and I just think the time where there was a time where that formula defined an era, and it was super hot, everybody loved it. And then it got to a point where everyone was like, these are all copy and paste, but there were still fans who were like, yeah, it's copying, like, yeah, but like we know what this formula is, but I like it, it's fun. Excuse me.
But it's just not going to work
but
anymore.
like now it's another 10 years have gone by, and we're all looking back going, who wants this anymore? And I really don't think anybody does.
Yeah, we'll see what the next games are, but I don't have much hope for them. This is not exactly, because Tencent's not even that good of a company where the things they touch turn to gold.
They definitely don't.
Yeah, so it's not even a surefire thing that these games will actually be good here on out. And Ubisoft has not had the best business sense in recent years, so I don't really have much reason to trust them on this either.
I'm trying to remember what else we have coming from Ubisoft now that we can even look forward to, and I don't think they have anything on the I don't think they have anything on the docket. I mean, of course, there's the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake that they hinted at, and we'll see. But if I were to guess, that game's not coming out. Other than that, I don't think they don't really have anything, right? Like we don't have a Rabbids game coming. There might be like a Rayman remaster or something kicking around somewhere that I'm ignorant of. But like what is coming from Ubisoft? Ghost Recon,
Beyond Good and Evil 2.
I doubt it. Beyond Good and Evil 2, you can fucking keep wishing for Santa Claus to keep coming, but
Division 3, they were working on that.
That was not announced.
Was it announced?
No, because remember that team went and did Star Wars Outlaws, and we don't know what they're doing now.
Oh yeah, maybe I was thinking Splinter Cell, where we were hearing some rumors.
There was a announced Splinter Cell remake that we got a blog post about, and then we've seen nothing else about.
That might be released this year. You never know.
No, it's not. We're never seeing that happen. That's not happening.
You just think you know everything.
I mean, why would I have faith? They had a Game of the Year contender last year. They had probably the greatest Metroidvania game of all time, and they had the best Prince of Persia game of all time last year. They didn't market it. They didn't put it out on the right storefronts, and they let it just die on the fucking vine and be forgotten about. And then fumbled a Star Wars game. This company fucking sucks. They don't know how to manage their IPs, and even in that, they don't understand how to keep a work force like in line enough to where it like their employees can feel safe at work. So like, what do we expect from this fucking company, man? They're just a bunch of buffoons.
Hey, don't insult Yves
Guillemot should probably be in jail.
He's done something.
There's
that
some
bald head
insider trading or something going on, or he's stealing wages or something.
He's greased up that bald head of his and gone to places that I don't want to think of. I could tell.
Yeah, but places I do want to think of, Connor, is in fact involved in our next story, which is our second topic of the day. Something. Let's get a little bit, a little ray of hope, little shining of light in this industry, real quick. Moving on to topic number 2, my second penny of the day. Defunct gaming magazine Game Informer revived. Celebrated video game news publication Game Informer has been given a new lease on life following its shutdown by GameStop last August. The publication's editor-in-chief Matt Miller posted a letter to the restored site on March 21st, 2025, wherein it states Game Informer's rights were acquired by developer Gunzilla Games, and that all the employees at the time of the shutdown were rehired. Quote, over the months since two remarkable things happened, Miller writes. Quote, the first is that Game Informer as a brand and an outlet was purchased and given a new lease on life. The second is that the entire team that was working together at Game Informer's closure has returned, from editorial to production and beyond. The entire team. Seriously, I'm still pinching myself. The publication will be beneath an entity referred to as Game Informer Incorporated, and will operate as an independent outlet where an editorial team will fully dictate the direction of the revised news platform. Miller writes, quote, I am deeply grateful for the trust and enthusiasm from the team at Gunzilla Games. They see the same potential in Game Informer as our team does, and their encouragement to do so ethically and free of outside pressure is laudable. Connor, look up who Gunzilla Games is for me real quick.
Yes. So Gunzilla Games, I already had that up. They're in the process of creating because they're a new studio. They're only in the process of making a game called Off the Grid. It's a extraction shooter. I don't know what the status of it is right now. I think it had a beta recently. The interesting thing, and as far as Gunzilla Games is concerned as well, what's the position exactly? I just had it a second ago. The chief creative officer and co-founder is Neil Blomkamp, who is a famous director for District 9, Chappie. He made Elysium as well. He has his own little YouTube channel where he makes a lot of shorts. And he is, I think, the director of Off the Grid. He's one of the writers. So that's what they're doing right now, which is why it was surprising to hear that they were buying Game Informer, because I had never heard of them before. And furthermore, they were doing it without any kind of, oversight, really. Clearly, they'll probably have some degree of, okay, what are you doing? What's the direction the company's going for? But by all accounts, it seems like that's going to be dictated by the editorial team itself, rather than them being this, shadowy corporation, making sure they get to work while cracking the whips. So this is very rare to see any kind of, we actually, I want to say it's rare to see something get closed down in the games industry and then to all of a sudden have it pop up again. It happened recently with Tango Gameworks, but whereas that seemed like an exception, now with Game Informer coming back out of the blue, maybe we'll see more of this come along as studios begin to close that maybe they shouldn't have, but they only do so because of the current state of the industry, and more people like Gunzilla Games comes in and buys it up. I mean, I brought up Neil Blomkamp. I can't help but feel like that might be, because he has to have money, right? You would think he would. Maybe that had some kind of, they have some big backers over at Gunzilla Games that can allow them to, purchase Game Informer. And this is probably indicative of greater plans to expand. They obviously have one game in the works, but, you need more than that as a game developer. And so maybe it's good to extend out into the news publication era with buying something that's well loved like Game Informer.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about your bit about things getting bought out. Two examples isn't exactly a new rule. It's
not a rule. That's why I didn't say it was a rule yet.
Exceptions, but no, this is of course super exciting for me. I'm playing the trailer of Off the Grid now. This kind of rings a bell from what I'm looking at, but this is a very strange trailer. There's a lot of like cinematic storytelling things happening in this trailer, so it's very strange that it's an extraction shooter. And again, we'll see, or battle royale or an extraction, because they said royale at the trailer. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find out.
Hybrid or something. I don't know. So we'll see about that if that ever makes any types of waves. We've seen a lot come and go under that type of thing. But yeah, to your point, if I were to guess, it's pretty much just they're like, okay, well, how are we going to make a profit off of you? Is what they care about. I assume there's going to be a subscription thing. If I can afford it, I will subscribe to this. Because of course I loved Game Informer back in the day. I had not been a subscriber for a while, and a lot of that had to do with their affiliation under GameStop. And so now that they're like fully independent and they were miraculously able to bring the whole team back, which is another miracle in that, because Tango Gameworks hasn't been able to do that. They've brought back most of them from what we've heard, but not everybody. So for everybody to be able to do that is fantastic. Always been great teams at Game Informer. Game Informer has not always been able to produce, we'll say, the most genuine content, but of course that's not their fault. That's orders coming on from down high. So now that they'll be able to do that, and they've got a full team on board, I'm fully expecting that this revival will provide like some really, really great content for us to indulge in. Some think pieces, some editorials, and then of course the great coverage that Game Informer always provides for new and exciting games. Always going to be super exciting. This is invigorating. This really like it really puts a pep back in your step. You know what I'm saying? Of this, because like it was such a heartbreaker when Game Informer closed down. And so now to get them back, and to know that like we're going to get those iconic covers again, to know that we're going to get all that great coverage for previews of games again, and then not have to play to the games of the modern internet culture as much anymore. yeah, this is super super exciting. So yeah, if I can find a way to like when things get fully integrated and stuff, if I can find a way to support this, I'm gonna try and figure it out for myself. So yeah, super super excited about this. Really glad that that they are back in full force, and so yeah, this is something that, like, if you're not paying attention to this, please pay attention to this, because this is like how we as gamers, how we as video game enthusiasts and industry enthusiasts, this is how we can really put our own money where our mouth is and say, hey, this is something we wanted. This was a pillar of the culture, a pillar of the community that we like loved, and we want to see come back, expand, and possibly be even stronger than it was before, right? What's the best way to you never appreciate something until it's gone. Hey, it was gone. So now it's time to fucking appreciate it, especially now that it's back and you can. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Everyone make sure that if you can do that as much as you can, because this is the type of stuff that you want to see more of. Connor, moving on to our third topic of the day, your first penny of the day. Go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Former PlayStation president Shuhei Yoshida on Japanese games in the West and closure of Japan studio. Speaking with AV Watch, former president of PlayStation Studios Shuhei Yoshida touched on the importance of Nier Automata and pushing developers in Japan to, quote, make something Japanese, and on what caused the downfall of Japan studio. Yoshida discusses his original intent when moving to the U.S. in 2000 as vice president of Sony Computer Entertainment America, now called Sony Interactive Entertainment, SIE, was to, quote, show America the great things about Japanese game development, end quote. Yoshida's attitude would change over the coming years as the Japanese games industry in the later part of the PS2's life cycle had Western developers no longer looking to Japanese games for reference due to the technological improvements of the time originating from the West instead. Quote, at the time, PC games were not very important in Japan, but there was a big PC game market overseas, says Yoshida. The same publisher who was also releasing PC versions. During the time of the PS1 and PS2, when the consoles were first released, they were cheaper and had better performance than PCs. However, as PCs' specs improved, they began to surpass consoles. Whenever a new console comes out, I unplug it again, but my PC quickly catches up. Now, when a new console comes out, the PC side is in a position where they're ready to develop for that generation. This was the situation in the overseas game industry. At the time, the Japanese game industry was in the mindset of learning from when new consoles come out, so I think that gap caused us a lot of trouble. As time progressed into the mid-2010s, where more games began imitating cinema in video game form, Japanese developers were left unable to appeal to this market shift. According to Yoshida, things changed when Nier Automata released in 2017 to massive acclaim, selling 9 million copies to date and revolutionizing how Japanese devs would proceed. Quote, I think Yoko Taro made it without any thought of whether it would sell overseas or not, but it was a big hit overseas, Yoshida says. From then on, it became clear that Japanese creators were making Japanese-like things, and that these were selling overseas. Everyone noticed that with Nier, it's not just, that's okay, but we have to do it this way. That's why Japanese creators have started to think, let's stop imitating other countries, and if we create something that is our own culture, something that we understand, then other countries will understand it. I think it's fair to say that the Japanese games industry was revived after Nier. To put it simply, I think it was the title Nier that made us realize, let's make something Japanese. Speaking on the 2021 closure of Japan Studio, Yoshida remarks on his time at SIE being spent focusing on developing first-party games that sell hardware and how this business model chafed with the inherent development process of Japanese games. Quote, that's the kind of thing the company wanted, and as we had to create it, the scale of development and the required sales kept growing, states Yoshida. As a result, there was a time when it was difficult to do that within Japan's development structure. Japanese creators come up with some very creative and interesting stuff, but it always ends up being double A size. That's also why Japan Studio disappeared after I left my position as president of Worldwide Studios. End quote. The remnants of Japan Studio who developed games such as Bloodborne and Parappa the Rapper would disperse to a variety of SIE studios, including Team Asobi, who would go on to release a Game of the Year title in the form of Astrobot, with PlayStation intending to release similar titles in the future. So, through this interview, I guess first would be on the marketing of Japanese games as they are in the Western audience. I'm trying to think of games that came out after the fact that started emboldening this idea that if you just make Japanese games, then the players overseas will take to it. One of the ones I think of is the Yakuza franchise, which got a variety of remakes from originally not having that much fanfare over in the U.S. and now, Like a Dragon, Yakuza, that franchise is one of the mainstays of Capcom's itinerary going forward. Sega's itinerary going forward. And then also you have games like you could push towards something like Fire Emblem Three Houses, that kind of tactics, traditional tactics RPG mechanic.
Anime style characters.
Anime style, yeah. That's also one that took very well over here in the US. Persona 5 as well. Though Persona 5 came out before this. But I definitely see that as being, because he points out because Nier Automata came out in 2017. Persona 5 was 2016.
In Japan.
Which was in Japan. Yeah.
So you're looking at that same success in the same year like that. Yeah. So yeah, we've got that. Yeah, we've just got that general push where Western audience are just kind of hip to game now. We've always known that. There's a lot of talent over in the East. Of course there is. Like I would argue Japan is the most important and influential country when it comes to video game development.
Yes.
And I don't think you could argue that any other way. With the massive success of things like, Shuhei credits Nier Automata, which of course sold quite well and did very well over here in the West. I don't think it set the world on fire over here, but I think it did better than it should have. It's a weird concept game. It's got a lot of weird Japanese stuff about it. And gameplay wise, mechanically, it doesn't necessarily fit into the type of mold that you would really see over here, or even what Western expectations of what a Japanese game are. It doesn't really fit that in terms of how Persona does, or how now Yakuza's kind of done that as well in respect to Japanese action games. And now, of course, Like a Dragon turning turn-based. But I think Nier Automata is important, in terms of let's get the nerdy gamers really, really excited and amped up and energized to play games like this. And of course, the legacy of the game, Connor, you can attest to it. The game is of immense quality, and so that legacy that it left behind in it, has just it's sort of only grown in the mind space of gamers since its release. It's a game that we've constantly looked back on and said, "Yo, that one had the sauce." Y'all need to go back and really revisit that one.
And a lot of this is about the confidence it instilled in these developers. It's not necessarily about how well it sold, though that definitely matters. But the fact that it wasn't making, the biggest numbers of the year, I doubt it was, at least it made them say, okay, well, just because it has all of these Japanese features doesn't mean that it's unappealable to people over in the West. Quite the opposite. And so it opened up the gateway for those other games that we've now seen since.
They don't need to appease to us, is the thing. Or they don't need to appease to what we think, or to what they think is our taste, right? They can do something within their culture, or they can do something within their style, bring it to us, and we still appreciate it and love it and support it. I think a direct comparison as to why this is probably a better route to go otherwise, or is a better route to go than not, is Final Fantasy. The once leader of Japanese IP has fallen short in the last however many titles you want to go back, probably since anything after 14 Reborn is just not up to par for what they're looking for. I mean, of course, the 7 remake series is critically acclaimed, and 16 also was critically acclaimed, but the fan base did not react well to 16, or maybe not as well as they would have liked to 16. 16 sales, got headlines of yo, this is not what we were looking for a new installment, a new numbered installment in the Final Fantasy series. Stranger Paradise Origins. Connor, you like that game, but that game got made fun of and beat like dragged out into the street and beat to death. Like that game was not the most successful thing on the planet. Like it just kind of wasn't, perception wise.
Yeah.
And so like you see this sort of return to form through the Nier Automata team, through Persona 5 hitting a new stride, through this huge rise of interest in games like Yakuza and even things like Monster Hunter.
Yes, that too.
You see this huge rise of interest in that in the West, and then you look at the rest of the industry, even on the smaller scales. You've got studios that aren't of Japanese descent making Japanese inspired video games. The most upcoming example, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. That's a Final Fantasy game, an old school Final Fantasy game, not on the new shit. Like they are very much like they're saying, hey, if y'all don't want to do it, we'll do it ourselves. And so I just think it's important to uphold the standards of where you're from. In my opinion, it's important to sort of state your claim and say, hey, this is what we do. This is what we do. We do it well, and you may not get it at first. That's fine. You will eventually, right? And I think as the industry and as the medium has matured, we've kind of learned to appreciate all of its aspects, And we've seen a lot of different countries and a lot of different cultures sort of start developing in that sense as well. We've in the last couple of years, we've had a lot of really big Korean heavy hitters come out and start swinging big. Chinese, of course.
Black Myth Wukong.
Thank you.
In fact, in the wider interview, he does bring that up as extending that same conversation to Chinese games, and how Black Myth Wukong has made it more of an accessible market to get into Chinese-made games.
Yeah,
because clearly those have not been as big outside of China for a while. And to dive back into,
granted, this is happening worldwide. It's not just Eastern stuff. Like the rise of CD Projekt Red is exactly the same thing that we're talking about here, just from the Western perspective, of them saying, yo, people want these like really deep narrative action RPGs, and we're going to give it to them. And they want them to be mature, and they want them to be serious but like also, a little like, goofy in the Western way of like, titties and blood and gore and drunk people doing dumb shit, and you really saw that with The Witcher 2. And I think a lot of Western developers kind of lost their way for the same reason, right? Is we saw this huge pivot. Now, some of this was not, I don't think any of this has to do with the artists. I think this almost entirely has to come from up high executive level, C-suite level personnel who are coming down and saying, yo, we need to make these things more profitable. So you need to appease to these different markets and compromise your artistic vision and your product and XYZ reason. And it's for the same example that you have with, that I have with Final Fantasy and Square Enix and other Japanese-led games that have tried to appease to us. Same thing happened to BioWare. Same thing happened to a lot of these EA studios. Same thing happened to Ubisoft that we just talked about, And so instead of focusing on what we do well in developing that and evolving that, we've tried to diversify ourselves and lost what made each of us special, in the process. I'm not like the term like regionalism can be like a little like tricky to handle, but like if you just let what makes where people are from shine, it shows in the final product, and it's often rewarded for that. Connor, you're gonna roll your eyes at me. Hip hop is going through the same renaissance right now, where the last decade everybody has sounded the fucking same, until Kendrick popped out last year and said, no, I'm West Coast, I'm LA, this is what we do, you gonna respect it, or you can kick rocks. And wouldn't you fucking know it, Super Bowl stadium tour. People respect when you put you forward, you know? You yourself forward. And that's what we saw with Nier Automata in a different way. And I think games like Baldur's Gate 3 have been rewarded for that statement. It's the entire rise of FromSoft is exactly what that is, right? No, we have a vision, we believe in it, and we are really good at this thing that we do. This specific thing, we're really good at it. And we're going to keep working at it and get better at it to the point to where we are just going to release dynamite after dynamite after dynamite to the point to where we're going to keep doing what we do, but we also have ideas of other things that we want to do. And now we get the return of Armored Core 6, or the return of Armored Core with Armored Core 6. And now we get fun projects like Elden Ring Night Rain, where it's like, well, you know, like this one's like a little different for us, but you stick with it because we have an idea, right? But it's not going to become FromSoft's entire identity. They're going to keep making Soulsborne games. You know they are. It's just they are now, because they stuck to their code, given the opportunity to now play with the formula a little bit more. That's what we need to see more of, man. That's why like a lot of these old titans of industry that we're used to are kind of on their back foot right now. You know, that's why Square Enix is trying to like simplify their production line, you know, and have it stuck on, you know, just a couple of IPs and not, you know, have such a wide breadth of thing. Because what the fuck was Square Enix doing making Forspoken? Like, what were we doing? Why is
Game of Thrones?
Why is Ubisoft dumping all this money into his Skull and Bones? Why is Rocksteady making a Suicide Squad? Why is that happening?
Because they want to make big bucks, and they saw the big way to make big bucks was to make big games. Why people play big games?
Connor, why did the Division team make an open world Uncharted game? What were they doing with that? Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog. That's another example. Naughty Dog. What are you doing making a multiplayer game? Now, you've had multiplayer modes in the past, and I think Last of Us Factions wasn't terrible, but it wasn't going to be what it was supposed to be. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it got canceled. I think PlayStation's hip to, as a publisher, PlayStation is hip to understanding that there are expectations on their studios, and those studios should focus on that, right? EA lost that, you know? And it seems like they're trying to get it back, but now the industry's in a tough place because of COVID, right? Square Enix lost that, and they're struggling for it. You know who lost it and then remembered it? Connor, you already know. We've been talking about it a lot recently.
CD Projekt Red?
No, Big Capcom.
Ah, yes.
Capcom should have died in that 2013, 2014, 2015 era. You know? They should have been gone.
That era where he's talking about how Japanese developers were trying to appeal to Western audiences.
Resident Evil was a third-person action shooter. Why? Why did we go that route? That doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, Resident Evil 4, one of the most critically acclaimed, beloved games of all time. It's in GOAT conversations all the time, right? But it led to 5, which you and I love, but it's not the most beloved game in the franchise. And then it led to 6, which is universally seen as one of the worst in the franchise. And it almost killed the company, you know? On top of that, Street Fighter 5 came content like lists. It just didn't have content in it, right?
It also had bugs to begin with. It was not the best launch.
Yeah, huge, like just destroyed online for that. And they felt it from that. DMC became something else entirely. And they had to like pivot hard back, right? And then all of a sudden, 2017, Resident Evil 7 hits. And then you get Monster Hunter Worlds, which had always been kind of like underrated, even in Capcom's own people underrated that and what it could do over here in the West. Monster Hunter World came out, and then you had Street Fighter 6, Devil May Cry 5, and that like I've got 17 more titles from Capcom in the last 10 years that prove that, hey man, do what you do. Don't appeal to whatever the gimmicks are of the moment, because games take too long to do that anyway. Don't try and force your studio to put out a game that they are not equipped for, that they are not ready for. Now, if the dev studio comes to you and says, hey, we have an idea, we're excited, we want to do this, That's a different thing. And even I can understand a lot of these games are made with the best intentions. I'm sure people at Rocksteady were given the assignment, hey, we need a games of service game. Figure it out for us. And I'm sure there were people who went, well, I have an idea. Let's experiment with this. Wait, no. Oh, wait, no, this could be cool if we do that. There were absolutely days in the dev studio where the team were going, wow, we are fucking cooking right now. You know? But the final product didn't work out because it's not their bag.
Which kind of leads into the other part of this story, which is why were they thinking that AA games were not sustainable?
That's
not
how this industry lives.
Yeah. And like, I get now that's clearly like, oh, we need more AA games. AAA games take too long in the oven. Development time soared way too high to make that sustainable. But even back then, before we were in that space, you would always want to have games that could be made way quicker than your big AAA titles. And Japan Studio was not getting a lot of support. Like, for example, Gravity Rush. I only know about that because of the work Twitter artists did. I never saw them talk about that game at all, even when the second one was coming out. They just, it's hard. Like, Japan Studio didn't have marketing behind it. And then they decide for business reasons, oh, we don't want to have AA games, which they make anymore. Shuhei's is gone. Yoshida's gone, so no one's here to really fight for him. Get rid of him. It just seemed like it was not informed by any factual line of thought at all, just with how they just completely screwed over that title. They made Bloodborne. They had the sauce. That wasn't even.
What's up with this like Japan studio? Because Bloodborne always gets given to From Software. So what's up with Japan? What was their influence on Bloodborne? I don't.
Because they helped out with making it, and they seemingly had a pretty good role to play in making it. Like, it was From Soft, but it was largely in collaboration with Japan Studio.
So is this why we're not getting another Bloodborne? Is because of that reason?
No, that was actually because a Square Enix, a Sony executive or someone on that higher end of the spectrum was saying how that's a decision that's really up to Miyazaki over at FromSoft. And if he even said that they, like, PlayStation or Sony or whatever was interested in doing something, but it's really up to them on what they want to exactly do. So it funny enough, it doesn't even seem like it's a PlayStation thing, but really a From Software problem. And maybe the fact that Japan Studio isn't around anymore, and they may have wanted to use them to do some Bloodborne remaster or a Bloodborne PC port, which is also something that Japan Studio could have done. There's more than just developing games. It's the assistance in developing games. And to just, cut your own feet out from under you for short-term profits is just, it really was indicative of what's wrong with this industry, especially at the time in which it was shut down. COVID had just, it was still in the process of COVID. And, you don't know what the games industry was going to look like after COVID. And clearly, if they had, maybe they would have considered keeping Japan Studio around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hopefully things like Astrobot are proving our point, and hopefully the message is heard, right? And I think it is important for guys like Shuhei to be out here speaking the truth like this. Still, now he's no longer with PlayStation at all now. Most recently, just leaving. He kind of the head of the indie front, and wouldn't you know it, he was the head of the indie front in the era where PlayStation had arguably its best relationship to indies, where you start seeing games like Stray be the front runner, most important thing out of a PlayStation State of Play. You know what I'm saying? So salute to Shuhei Yoshida, man. Always being a real one, and always just having the right eye for talent and having the right eye for quality and understanding these things. Now, of course, Stray, not a game that like is beloved by me, but like definitely had a moment, right? That was a moment, Cult of the Lamb. That's another one. That's a game that I do really like. Had a big moment and was put in front of a lot of PlayStation players' eyes because of Shuhei Yoshida, And so, I'm going to miss him so much at PlayStation. I'm hopeful that they can kind of like figure it out a little bit better with their new leadership setup. I forget exactly how it works now. I know that Herman Holst stepped down as CEO, but he's still running. He's still running like the creative department. Like they kind of just like changed his title. I think he was just getting a lot of emails he didn't want. Is what the problem was. So they just changed his title so that he could, sort of get his email focused in a better way. Is my running theory. Because it didn't really like change his responsibilities when they took the title off of him. But yeah, so yeah, that's a weird situation. So yeah, I'm hopeful that in the next like 5 years, PlayStation can kind of return to a glory that we saw in that early to mid PS4 days, and even the late PS4 days that we saw. So I'm hoping that we can kind of get a return to glory there, and just generally industry wide, I kind of hope that we can kind of get that going. I would love to see Square Enix at the top of the game again. I would
as well.
I would love to see Final Fantasy be an impactful RPG series once again. That would be so phenomenal if a Final Fantasy 17 returned to turn base, as we've talked about, with a high level budget, long game, expansive map, and memorable, lovable characters and cast with really deep turn based mechanics. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I think games like Persona have clearly stated that it can work. I think games like a Dragon have clearly stated that this is still profitable, even if it's on the lower end of the budget side. And then I think obviously the creation and the excitement around Clair Obscur Expedition 33 clearly shows that there's a lot of interest in this and that it can be profitable, and you just got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying?
Gotta lock in.
Gotta lock in. Moving on, Connor, to our final topic of the day. Kind of continuing the theme of what we were just talking about here. Go ahead, take it away, buddy.
It never ends, man. 17 employees laid off at Crystal Dynamics. Tomb Raider TV series in trouble. Developer Crystal Dynamics lays off 17 employees while in the process of developing a new Perfect Dark and Tomb Raider game. A social media post this past Wednesday announced the changes while assuring fans that the decision doesn't interfere with project plans, presumably regarding the aforementioned titles above. Quote, "We did not make this decision lightly," the statement reads. Ultimately, this step was necessary to better align our current business needs and the studio's future success. It is not a reflection of the dedication or ability of those affected. We recognize how painful this outcome is for those impacted, and we are supporting them with transition packages and our opportunity outreach.
Hey, is this the same quote from the WB Games layoffs from last month? Like, what the fuck? Like,
it might be.
It's almost bar for bar.
They all sound the same, that's for certain. Crystal Dynamics remains committed to pushing the boundaries of making great games, end quote. Layoffs previously occurred in 2023 following restructuring efforts at Embracer Group that led to marketing and IT personnel to depart the company. Perfect Dark was rumored by games journalist Jeff Grubb in 2024 to be in, quote, rough shape, end quote, with Crystal Dynamics having joined onto the project to collaborate with The Initiative in 2021. Additionally, the Tomb Raider TV series from Amazon is reportedly in development hell, with production remaining stagnant over the past 3 years despite millions invested in the project. According to Matthew Baloney at news site Puck, the show has gone through 2 writing rooms with a script not yet completed.
Now, granted, the TV show is handled by a different team. But
it is
Crystal Dynamics associated with Tomb Raider, so
it all works together.
Nothing really going well over there, which is unfortunate. At
least they give them severance packages.
Yeah, I don't know how to read this. I don't know how to gauge what's going on with Crystal Dynamics right now. Now, you mentioned it in your writings here, Connor. Jeff Grubb last year said Perfect Dark seems to be in rough shape. We saw it at the Xbox showcase last summer, and I thought it was looking pretty good. From what we've been shown so far. Now that might be all they've got is one good demo, and that's it. That's not a whole game. But what I saw, I liked. And so I'm hoping that maybe they like just were struggling to find their footing. And now they found it, and hopefully they can still put out a nice 8 out of 10 game. You know what I'm saying? We don't even have a release year on that one, right?
We do not. It's all up in the air.
That's one that, like, all right, I hope we get something soon about that. But, of course, I think Xbox kind of wants to hold that release date kind of close to their chest, which they should.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say how I lost my point.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah, so Crystal Dynamics, I mentioned they had laid off some people in the past. Admittedly, it's not like a lot of other developers we see where it's like 80 employees laid off, 150 laid off, or whatever. They've been small. So this one's 17, which is bigger than the last time, which was only 9 employees in brand, and I mentioned that, in marketing and IT. So it doesn't seem like Crystal Dynamics is just wholesale firing people as they see fit. They seem to be pretty what's the word? Reserved when it comes to firing people in large quantities. So at least it's not as dour as many other layoffs have occurred in the past.
And I mean, some of the like layoff business that happens in this industry is a little different than how you see in most industries. There's a like an ununiformity in sort of how the workforce happens here, where like a lot of teams like shrink down, work through production stuff, rise back up. You know, like the last round of layoffs was in the marketing team. Well, they knew Crystal Dynamics is not going to release a game anytime soon. You know, we're not getting this Tomb Raider game anytime soon. Spoilers. You know,
No.
and so I think it's going to be a long time before we even start seeing anything from that Tomb Raider game. So, you know, why do we need such a heavy duty marketing team right now? Now, that's no disrespect to that team. Of course, if you ever lose your job, it's very heartbreaking and scary. It's a very scary thing because it's affecting your livelihood, right? So I always want people to feel safe and to be happy and, you know, be able to provide for their families. That, of course, is always the frontline issue here. But I could just kind of understand that, like, from a business perspective, it doesn't make sense to keep on a team of X number of people when we don't have anything to give them for a set number of years. You know, these are people who are looking at timelines for the next like 5 to 10 to 15 years, and trying to plan for that. And they just understand that, like, well, marketing for Perfect Dark is not going to be handled by us. It's going to be handled by Microsoft and Xbox and probably even the initiative team, right? So like that's not our problem. And again, you have to remember, this is Embracer that we're talking about. They are looking to cut where they can. And, you know, they just kind of keep shedding away at Crystal Dynamics here little by little by little by little, which is unfortunate. Hate that. Don't like seeing that at all. But it doesn't really surprise me. Crystal Dynamics is another studio that got mishandled by Square Enix. Why did they make that Marvel's Avengers game? That didn't make any sense. Why was it a live service game?
It was all the rage, Tavin. Why would you not capitalize off of live service games? They're always going to be popular.
And you know, a lot of us said it at the time. That game felt like it was torn between two different games. It was a lot of the time meant to be super action adventure inspired, like, and then the other half of the time it was trying to be a live service gear grindy game, you know. And it just neither experience was super high quality. So yeah, even though I did like that Marvel's Avengers game, that game was overly hated. I'll say that much. It was an okay game. It was okay. It just wasn't as great as it should have been. And Crystal Dynamics is a talented studio, so I'm hoping that they're going to be able to find their footing again and come up with something else. I personally think it's a little disappointing that they're working on a Tomb Raider game, but
that's what they do.
Listen, if
they're
it works,
in that wheelhouse.
If it works, it works. You know. I'm curious to see how they're going to step up to the challenge of revisiting that series and making something new out of it. Because I don't think we would continue that storyline that we had with that version of Lara Croft. I imagine it'd be a new version of that. I think they've even said that they're like rebooting it and giving us something new. Same with Rocksteady with Batman. They're not going to do Arkham again, you know. So what else do you have in the tank for us? You know, that is an interesting question to have. I just hope it all pays off. But as of right now, Crystal Dynamics is another example of a studio that got led astray, pulled away from what they were good at, and now, you know, there's a percentage of that workforce that, you know, is just gone, and they aren't the same team that you loved, replaced with a team that is doing something else. And just, yeah, it's the same thing with BioWare. Dragon Age the Veilguard, not the most, like, beloved game ever, but not the most hated either. It's a fine game. But BioWare had been on the wrong trajectory for so long that the team that made the Dragon Ages that you love, the team that made the KOTORs and the Mass Effects, that team's gone. It's a new team now. And so they got to re-identify themselves and come with something else. hopefully all of these teams will be able to figure it out, and we'll be able to get some great games out of it.
I doubt it. With all these goddamn publishers screwing over developers, we'll see.
I mean, lessons have got to have been learned, right? Like, I mean, how can you not?
How could you not, right? We'll ask ourselves that question later on, over and over and over again.
And we'll continue asking them right here over at the Two Penny Gamescast. This is, of course, has been your episode of the Two Penny Gamescast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and catch us every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. Links are in the description down below for all of our social medias. Make sure you catch us over there, follow us over there. Keep following us on TikTok and other platforms like Instagram Reels, very important platform for us right now. So make sure you follow us over there. Make sure you are ready next week for the return of the Two Penny Game Club with our review of Kingdom Hearts. Very, very excited for this episode. This is going to be a banger of an episode, I'm sure. Hopefully, all of us, me, Connor, and Phil, Phil's a little down under the weather as well, we'll be able to kick all of this little sickness and sinus gunk out of us for next week so that we can perform at the level of quality that we want to for that episode. It's going to be a very, very important episode, so make sure you cue in for that. But until next time, have a great time. And Connor, say goodbye to the people.
I'm a plague dog.